Welcome back to Asterisk's Law Journal. Today, we're diving into a topic that's been widely discussed in China, something called anti-involution. But instead of treating it as a cultural buzzword, let's look at it through the lens of competition law. What happens when a government policy that seeks to reduce excessive competition meets the strict logic of antitrust law, where the goal is to protect competition, not limit it? Can there be such a thing as too much competition?
That's a great starting question. The word involution originally came from the American anthropologist Clifford Geertz, who used it to describe an economy that grows more complex internally, but without real productivity gains. People work harder, but output stagnates. In modern China, involution has become shorthand for irrational, exhausting competition. Students endlessly studying for the same exams, companies locked in destructive price wars, or employees trapped in endless overtime.
Exactly. So anti-involution, or fan nei wan in Chinese, isn't about rejecting competition altogether. It's about discouraging inefficient competition that burns energy but creates little value. From an economic perspective, that sounds almost like the EU's concept of asterisk effective competition. Not just rivalry for its own sake, but rivalry that drives innovation, efficiency, and consumer welfare. The challenge is, how do you achieve that balance without crossing into protectionism or coordination?
Right, because in the EU or the US, if firms in the same industry start talking about ending the price war, competition authorities immediately raise an eyebrow. Under both Article 101 of the TFEU and Section 1 of the Sherman Act, agreements between competitors to coordinate prices or limit output are per se illegal, regardless of intention.
Yes, and that's the core tension. Policies like anti-involution aim to reduce what policymakers see as harmful competition. But competition law has no concept of too much competition. It only prohibits too little. In China's legal framework, this debate surfaced again in September 2025, when the National Development and Reform Commission and the State Administration for Market Regulation jointly issued what's known as Announcement Number 4. It's a short document, but its implications are significant.
So what does this announcement actually say?
It starts with a clear statement. Price competition is an important part of market competition, but disordered price competition can harm innovation, product quality, and the overall health of the economy. In other words, price competition is still welcome, but unstructured or destructive competition is not. The document urges companies to set prices based on cost and market demand, in line with the two-price law, and to act in good faith. But then comes the most interesting part. It allows industry associations, under the guidance of regulators, to asterisk research average industry costs and provide reference data to help firms price rationally.
That sounds, at first glance, like a reasonable idea. More transparency, more information sharing, but from a competition law perspective, that's a thin line to walk. Because if competitors start exchanging detailed cost information, or worse, use that data to coordinate prices, authorities in Brussels or Washington would immediately see it as a form of asterisk information exchange cartel.
Exactly. And the Chinese regulators seem fully aware of that risk. The same announcement explicitly warns that associations must comply with both the stowed-price law and the anti-monopoly law, and must not organize or facilitate any form of price coordination. So the policy message is, you may collect data for guidance, but you cannot discuss or agree on actual prices. It's a subtle attempt to blend policy guidance with legal discipline.
That's fascinating, because it mirrors debates we've seen in the EU about sustainability agreements. The European Commission, for example, has been exploring exemptions for cooperation that delivers social or environmental benefits, but always insists that such cooperation must not eliminate genuine competition.
Exactly. The analogy works well. Anti-involution could be seen as China's version of a social efficiency justification, an effort to make competition more sustainable. But the same caution applies. Once firms move from sharing data to it stops being sustainability and starts being collusion.
So if you were advising a multinational company or even a local industry association operating in China under this new policy atmosphere, what would you tell them?
I'd say three things. First, participate in cost or industry studies, but never in discussions about specific pricing decisions. Treat shared data as general, aggregated, and historical, not strategic or forward-looking. Second, keep a robust compliance program. Make sure your teams understand the antitrust risks of asterisk information exchange, especially in association meetings. And third, embrace the spirit of anti-involution. Shift from price competition to quality, brand, and innovation. Compete smarter, not harder.
That's a great point. It's easy to interpret anti-involution as a policy against hard work or rivalry, but in fact, it's about smarter allocation of resources. The same logic underpins the EU's competition policy, ensuring that markets reward innovation and efficiency, not wasteful overcompetition.
Precisely. At its heart, this is about balance. Policymakers don't want industries stuck in self-destructive cycles, but competition law exists to prevent the opposite problem: collusion and complacency. So the takeaway is this: anti-involution can guide market behavior, but it cannot override antitrust principles. The law still defines the bottom line: fair, independent, and autonomous decision-making by each market player.
Maybe the best way to put it is, policy tells you why to compete wisely. Law tells you how to compete legally.
Well said. And in today's global economy, every company, whether in Shenzhen, Brussels, or Silicon Valley, has to navigate both. Thanks for joining us in this episode of Ask Richie's Law Journal. If you found this conversation useful, subscribe and share, and we'll continue to explore how law, policy, and business intersect in this fast-changing regulatory world.